Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to show you how to make an electric vehicle. Now today I've got a very special guest. This is Tabitha. Tabitha is currently in year 5, so this activity would sit perfectly for a year 5 or year 6 class. So what we're going to be learning about is science and design and technology. Now in science you need to learn about electricity and electronics. So we're going to show you what we've done previously, and then we're going to show you how we'd apply that in design and technology. So let's just put this cardboard to the side for a moment. So what I gave Tabitha today was a range of components. So I gave her some wires, I gave her a battery snap, a battery pack, I gave her a motor clip and a motor, and I also gave her a plastic pulley which we've added on the end of the motor, which you will need. What I asked Tabitha to do was connect this. Now I didn't give her the answer, I allowed her to explore an experiment to get this motor working. So she very quickly did that. Do you want to put that together like you did before, to show everyone what you did?
So I
Don't worry about pulling that off.
I got the motor and put it in the this, and then I got the motor pack and I added this into here, and then I got the battery pack and got this clip on and attached these two. This to it.
Now the reason the battery pack and the battery snap is separate really is for safety, because once your battery pack is connected you've got voltage in there. So that's, do you know how many volts are in that pack? Remember what we just explained?
1.5.
So each cell is worth 1.5. So how many voltages have we got here? 3 volts. So there's 3 volts running along the material. And what material is the electricity running along?
Wires.
Which is made from what material? What's the wire made out of?
Metal.
Yeah, so metal is a conductor, so that's conducting electricity. The plastic on the outside is an insulator, so that stops the electricity flow. So if these two ends actually touch, that would be very highly dangerous, and that would make a short circuit. And this battery pack would actually start to overheat and smoke, and that's called short circuiting. So we don't want those to touch, so that's why it's useful to buy a battery pack separate to a snap, so when you're storing them those two terminals can't touch. So I'll let Tabitha carry on.
Now I got the green and black wires, and I got the green one and attached it to the red. And then I got the black one and attached that to the black wire. And then I grabbed this and attached the other end of this to here.
To the metal pin.
And then I got the green one and
then it starts working. So Tabitha was able to get to that stage without any help from me. And what she's created here is what we call a simple circuit. Now, she's noticed there's one thing missing from this circuit that allows me to switch it on and off.
A switch.
And that's why we've got an extra wire. So we could add a switch here. We could break that circuit. And we could, now the colours actually do mean different things. So red is positive and black is negative. I'm just going to try and find a switch. I'll leave it. We'll come back to the switch in a moment, but what I can do is connect the switch between here and here, so you can turn it on and off. But we'll come on to that later, because we just want to show you how we're going to connect this to a vehicle. So what Tabitha's also done, which you need to know about in year 5, is I've given her lots of pictures of electronic components, which if you want a copy of these, please let us know and we'll send you these. Pictures of components, names of components, and I've just dropped one down there, and symbols. So what the children in year 5 and 6 need to understand is what the component name is, but also what the circuit symbol would be. Because when you're communicating an electronic circuit, you need to use a circuit diagram. So we need to know what the symbols are. So rather than writing what components you're using, you would draw a circuit diagram. So really nice activity for the children to do in this age group. So we've done that previously. Tabitha didn't get all of them correct straight away, so I didn't give her the answer. I just took the incorrect one away and got to think about the logic of what symbol would be connected to what component and why. So she's managed to achieve that correctly. Now what we're going to do, now that's the science out of the way. We understand that this is a simple circuit. We understand that metal conducts electricity. And we understand that if I was to pop that on the plastic, that stops the flow of electricity, doesn't it? Because plastic is an insulator, so it stops that flow. So you could just learn science through doing that. But do you think just building a circuit like this is fun?
No.
So what you would like to do now is bring design and technology into it, wouldn't you? So we are going to build a mechanism now, and then we're going to connect that circuit to the mechanism to make it move on its own. So the mechanism we're going to build is a car. So the first thing we're going to make is the base. So I'm going to ask Tabitha to draw a shape for a base. It could be a square, it could be a rectangle. So she's going to quickly draw the shape and then she's going to cut it out. While she does that, I'll explain what materials you need to make your vehicle. So what we're making is a chassis. So the chassis is the underside of a vehicle. Now, is it a good idea to draw inside there, or do you think you should draw at the edge? You just got to think about wasting materials. So I'll let Tabitha carry on with that. So what we're going to use to make our vehicle move is we're going to use a mechanism which you will have used in Key Stage 1, and that is called the wheel and axle. So we are going to use a skewer to act as our axle, and we're going to attach some wheels to it so that when the axle moves, the wheel moves with it. So we need 4 wheels and we need 2 skewers. But what we're going to add to this wheel and axle, so a wheel and axle would move if we pushed it. And you'll know from our earlier tutorial that we used a balloon to power it, which is fine if you're in Key Stage 1. But in Key Stage 2, you need to start thinking about how you're going to get electronics to push and move your vehicle for you. So we're going to use this component here, which looks like a wheel, but it's got an indentation in it, and that is known as a pulley. So this pulley is going to be connected to the motor using an elastic band. So this is going to be connected to a wheel, and then we're going to connect that to a pulley on the motor, and that's how we're going to get your vehicle moving. So this is called a pulley system. So it's known as a mechanical system. So when I turn that motor on, that's going to turn that, which is connected to the wheel, and it will make sense in a moment. So we've got our wheels, we've got our pulley. Now what we're going to do is we're going to attach the pulley to the wheel. So using your glue gun, you're going to, if we turn this off, I think we have. Yes, we have. So we're going to have to wait for that to heat up. So using the glue gun, you're going to attach your pulley onto the wheel, like so. While we wait for that to heat up, we are going to need to make this axle move round. So to allow it to actually turn, so it's not going to be fixed to the base, we're going to fix a paper straw to the base. So that allows the axle to move inside. So once Tabitha's got a shape cut out, we will measure and cut 2 of these and glue them onto the base. So Tabitha, have you ever made an electric vehicle before?
No.
No. So she's never made it. Now, what I would encourage you to do is make a choice. So Tabitha's gone for a really unique shape for her car. Do you want to tell us what shape that is?
A hexagon.
How do you know it's a hexagon?
Because it has 5 sides.
5 sides?
Oh, 6
6
sides.
sides. Okay. If it had 5 sides, what shape would it be?
Pentagon.
A pentagon. So always ask your child questions. Even if you don't know the answer, it will help them think through their answer as well. Perfect, that is, Tabitha. Well done. So we've got a base. Now, you might make this and you might think, oh, it doesn't move as quickly as I'd like, so then you might change it, and that's fine, that's what we do. So, we've got a slight, it's irregular on that side. Now, what we need to do now is we need to measure the axles so that they are longer than the base. So you need to measure and cut. But what we need to think about is these wheels need to move, so we don't want them to be too close, but we don't want them to be too far. Now, what we need to also consider before we stick these on is that the pulley needs to connect to the motor that needs to be on the vehicle. So because we've gone for a really complex shape, it's going to make our brain fry a little bit, which is good. So Tabitha's designed something that's going to challenge her. So it might be worth popping your motor onto the base first, so we can work out how long the axle needs to be, because that pulley there needs to be lined up with that pulley there. So if that moves, that won't work, so it's got to be spot on. Now, your motor clip has a sticky bottom. If you peel it off, you can stick that onto your base. So if we pop it there, I'm making sure it's square, and it's not, so I'm going to peel it back off and re-stick it. There you go. Okay, press that down. So, the axle at the front doesn't matter as long as the wheels don't touch. So if you want to measure and cut the axle for the front, then when the glue gun's working, you can get that stuck on. So do you want to measure and cut the axle for the front? And don't worry too much if you cut it too long. Using a ruler so she can measure the same distance each side, which is good. There we go. And then she's going to mark it with a pencil, and then she's going to cut it. Okay. Just be really careful that sharp end.
Yeah.
And you can use secateurs to cut it because you're with me. Or the scissors, it's up to you. So if you're using scissors, you need to open up the scissors really wide and create a dent. Once you've got a dent in the wood, you need to grab two sides and snap it away from your eyes. That's perfect, well done. So that's one axle. And once the glue's ready, we'll glue these two on. Now you need to measure the back axle. So what I think we might do with the back axle is attach it first before we measure. Okay? So, glue gun. Now what we need to do is we need to measure and cut two straws that will be stuck to the base. So they need to be the width of the actual base. Let's see if this glue gun's working. Fancy not putting a glue gun on. There we go, we're working now. So while we do that, I'll just quickly go. So with the pulley, we're putting glue around the outside. We're making sure we don't put it into the hole. And we want the pulley to sit flat on the wheel surface. So you've got to almost line up the holes and look through, and it needs to sit flat. Okay? Now we need to attach this into there. So we need to put some glue into that hole. Do you want to do that? Mm-hmm. That's it. So we'll put a bit more glue. It's got to fill the hole. So it's got to go in the hole. That's it. Put it inside the hole. That's it. You might want to put the nozzle towards the hole. There's a lot of glue there. There you go. Perfect. And then give it a little bit of a wiggle. Put that to the side. Okay, and put the skewer inside that hole. So keep it flat. Yeah. Put the flat end in rather than the sharp end. There we go. Just be very careful of that sharp end. Push it right in. That's perfect. So that is sitting up right now. Once that's dry, we're just going to move that to the side. Once it's dry, we will measure it and cut it. So what you can do now is attach these if you want. So fill the hole. You add in. So we're going to make a basic chassis using one motor, and we're going to make it work using a simple circuit. Once Tabitha's had a go of this, next week what we're going to do is challenge her a little bit more. We're going to look at adding two motors. But I would always start with a very basic design first, to not overcomplicate things. Now Tabitha's left the straw on there, which is perfect, because that straw needs to glue to the base. Okay, but you've got to be careful that straw doesn't touch the glue. What would happen if it touched the glue?
It would stay still.
Yeah, so it wouldn't move. So we need that to move. Okay, so give it about a minute to dry. Once it's dry, you can pick it off the base and then you can stick the other side. I'm just going to lay that down, just make it a bit nervous at the pointy end. That's it. Perfect, well done. Technique with the glue in. And that needs to be placed inside the hole, but it needs to be super straight. Okay, leave that to dry for a moment. So once that's dry, we can then stick that onto the base, but we're going to stick it on the underside, not on the top. So, would you like me to pop some glue on there for you, Tabitha? Now, it's always a good idea to draw a line on the base first, so you know where it's straight. So I'm going to put one blob one side, one blob the other. And then we're going to very carefully stick the straw onto the base without gluing our fingers to the base. That's it, well done. And just check that works. Now that axle's quite long, so you've still got room to be able to trim that axle if you want. But again, you've got to be careful it doesn't rub, because that will cause what, you know what that scientific term is when two things rub together?
Friction.
Yeah, it will cause friction, which will slow it down. So we're going to leave that like that, turn it over. So we could trim that afterwards, but let's roll with it and see how we get on. And then we're going to now, have you cut the second straw? Do you want to measure another straw, the width? And cut it out. So this is quite a complex shape, so it's making me think on my feet a little bit. There you go, and then chop it. Excellent. And then let's glue that on there. Let's just make sure that line is straight. Is that straight? Yeah. And then a blob of glue.
Wait,
Yeah.
you're not...
And a blob of glue there. A bit more. There you go. Okay. Is that alright? Yeah? So now what we need to do is we need to make sure that the pulley is on the same side as the motor. And then we almost could do with adding the elastic band to one pulley to work out the length of your axle at the front. So if you want me to add this here, do you want to measure your axle now? Where do you want to put it? You need to sort of measure it so it's the same this side. Okay. So we're nearly done.
40.
You've got to go from the end of that room, that's perfect. And you've got to remember that actually you've got a pulley and a wheel on there, so you might want to add a little bit more. See? And then we're going to cut it. So let's cut it. Should we cut it with the secateurs because of it being on there? So we're using the secateurs and we are going to make sure our fingers are well away from where we're cutting, and we're going to hold the skewer so it doesn't flick, and we're going to cut. Open them out a little bit more. That's it. That's it. There you go. Oh, that's it. Well done. So now what we need to do is stick the other wheel on. And you'll notice now that you probably do want to reduce the axle of that, don't you? Or you'll see. So let's add that extra wheel on. Put a glue in there. Pop that in there. Now it's a bit tricky. There we go. Perfect. Well done. Okay, that's it. So that's flat. It's got to be straight. And then once it's all dry, all you've got to do now is add the wires and watch it roll. Hello and welcome back. We are now going to show you how to get your vehicle moving on its own. So to move your vehicle on its own, we need you to get an electronic circuit. So Tabitha's got all of the components ready to make a circuit. So Tabitha, do you want to show us what components you've got?
A battery pack and 2 batteries, a battery clip-on, and 2 wires.
So Tabitha's got all of the components, and then on her chassis, she's already built this chassis. We've got the mechanism that's underneath. What's the mechanism underneath?
The wheels and axles.
So the wheels and axles are on the bottom, And then on top she's got another component. What's the component called on top?
A motor and a pulley.
So we've got the motor that needs to be connected to the simple circuit, and then we've got a pulley. And the pulley, as you can see, is connected to another pulley on the wheel, and it's connected using an elastic band. Do you just want to lift that up, Tabitha, so we can see it in a bit more detail? Thank you. So Tabitha's now going to connect the simple circuit to make that motor work. So
what you'll have to do is grab the battery pack and the battery clip-on and attach them. And then once you've done that, you get the wires, get the black wire and attach that to the other black wire, and then grab the red wire and attach that one to the other red wire. Now we put the battery pack on here and get the other side of the wire and attach it to the motor, and then we do the same with the black one.
And as you can see, it moves really, really fast. So at the moment, this simple circuit has got one component missing that allows us to be able to make it move and stop it from moving. So what component could we use?
We could use a switch.
We could use a switch. So if I give you a switch and another wire, you can show us how you add this into your simple circuit. So here's another wire, and here's a switch. How can you now incorporate that into your simple circuit? So open out your simple looped circuit, so move your battery pack out of the way, show that it's a loop, yeah. Make sure your wires are untangled so it's really clear that it's a complete loop. And then you lift up that black wire and think about, lift up the other end that's not connected to the motor yet. Where can that black wire go so you can incorporate a switch into your circuit? Yes. So when you're using electronics with young people, I think it's really important to teach them about safety, but also allow them to explore and experiment. Now, one thing we haven't explained is the safety of the battery, but we'll come on to that in a moment. So where can that final wire go to make that motor work?
On the other side.
Okay.
And attach.
Now, as an electrical engineer, which Tabitha is now, on, off, so now she's got some level of control. So she can turn it on and she can turn it off, but if she leaves it on, where will the vehicle end up?
On the floor.
On the floor. So it's fantastic, a really good project for children to do, and to teach them about simple circuits and mechanisms to include wheels and axles and pulleys. So Tabitha's got a bit of a challenge to do now. What have you got to try and do now to make that look like a tidy vehicle? What have you got to do with all those wires?
Organise.
You've got to organise them. But what wires have you got to be careful of that don't touch? We've spoke about this before.
And black.
Which parts of the wire shouldn't connect? That
ends.
one, yeah, and that end. So if the two ends of the battery pack connect, what will happen to the battery pack?
Explode.
And that's called a short circuit. So that can cause a lot of damage, and the batteries will overheat and smoke. So you need to be really careful that those two ends don't touch. So what if you were storing your project away, Tabitha, to make it safe, what would you do with the battery pack?
Take it off.
Take it off, okay. So switch it on again for us to show us it working. Brilliant, and off. So there's a perfect example of how to use electronics and mechanisms and build yourself a basic chassis. Now that's a basic chassis, Tabitha. What could that product be? What could you turn that into?
A simple.
What could you? At the moment, you've just got a bottom and a base. What could you turn it into?
A car.
You could turn it into an electric car. So nice little project there. It could be an electric vehicle or any other type of vehicle. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Tabitha, for showing everyone today. and we hope that you revisit our YouTube channel soon.
Bye.
Bye.